Hey guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Trying to see, is Mercedes in here?
Oh,
Yeah, she's with me.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure she got in here okay. Okay. Did you guys get my emails last night about lab?
Yeah,
Okay, did everyone check those out and see if you could get in okay and everything?
I have. I have an Evolve account already. I just need to check the code to make sure that's okay.
Yeah, so there's a few different modules that you have to do, and basically you just have till the end of the term to get them done, you know.
Okay.
So you can work at your own pace, and whenever you're done, you turn it in, and Mrs. Pittman will look at it and she'll give you some comments.
So for that, do we still have to do the ATI and turn them in online, or who do we turn them into?
You probably should still do those ATIs. I guess, God, I don't even know what to say about that. I guess you could turn it into me, because where are we going to put them,
Yeah.
So just turn them into me. That's fine.
Okay.
For the remainder of the term, just do that. You could send them to my email.
Okay.
Which I'm getting flooded with so many emails, it's not even funny, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. Can't wait till this term's done. Jeez. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you guys were good with what's going on with lab. You are so lucky you don't have to do all of this clinical nonsense. It's fine. I mean, it'll be a good thing that they're doing, but wow, is it a mess. It's a kind of a pain to deal with right now. Okay, so what I was going to do today, we have 3 chapters we were supposed to go through, so obviously we're not going to get through all of that. So chapter 43 is on sleep, so that's what I'll probably do our discussion stuff on. So I'll just, make some things for you guys to comment on about that, specific to kind of what you need to know out of that. And then today I was just going to touch a little bit on nutrition and then do a little bit on that skin stuff. So
Okay.
if my timer runs out, I'll probably call another meeting here in a few minutes and then we'll just finish up. So just kind of watch for that. I'll tell you if my time starts to look like it's going low. Okay, so you know how every time we talk about these chapters, I tell you the equivalent in ATI.
Yeah.
So for chapter 43, the equivalent would be chapter 38 in your funds ATI book. That's that sleep chapter. With chapter 45, the nutrition chapter, your equivalent would be chapter 39 in your ATI funds. And then for the skin chapter, it's going to be chapter 55 in your ATI funds. Okay, so I kind of was looking through the test that this stuff will be on, because really this stuff is starting new material for like test 4. And I get it. I know we're all frustrated about this testing thing. Trust me, I wish we could have done our test today. It would have been better than waiting, but they're getting closer, I think, to being able to put that out. So hopefully maybe next week we'll get something in. But I'll let you know as soon as I know, so you know when you're taking it. But anyway, so I was looking at the test and I kind of picked out some things that I think, are a little bit more important to discuss. So that's kind of how I'm going to go about this today. Let me see. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. Here we go. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to kind of flip through here real quick and just tell you some highlights of things that you probably need to worry about with the nutrition chapter. So in the beginning of this, actually on this slide here, towards the bottom, it talks about a kilocalorie. There's an actual test question that says something about how many kilocalories per gram of fat should you be provided for nutrition every day. And the answer to that is 9. So that's actually in your ATI chapter. So, I mean, if you guys look at that, it'll help you out with that stuff really well. In the beginning of that chapter, it talks about the basic nutrients that your body requires. as far as carbohydrates and fats and proteins and vitamins and stuff. And that's where it talks about that. So it's right in there. So basically it says, we need to have fats to give us energy and vitamins. So no more than 35% of our caloric intake should be from fat. So every gram that we take in produces 9 kilocalories. So that's where that comes from. So sources of fat in our diet would be, what do you guys think?
Some healthy fats would probably be like avocados and nuts,
Yeah, definitely.
eggs, things like that.
Yeah. Egg yolks, anything along those lines. And then with carbs, we all love our carbs. So carbs are supposed to give us lots of energy and fiber. So each gram produces 4 kilocalories of carbs. So they provide glucose, which burns completely and efficiently without end products to excrete. So things that would be high in carbs would be what?
Bread.
Pasta and bread,
Yeah, all the things we love,
rice.
hard to stay away from some of those things. Yeah, anything like that. Those would be carbs. And then protein. How do we get protein? Where do we get that from?
Your meat, your chicken.
Legumes.
Okay.
You could also get it for like
Yeah, beans.
yeah, like beans, if like they're vegetarian or something.
Yeah. Also whole milk, believe it or not, you can get a little bit of protein from that. So anyway, protein is going to help us with growth, and it also helps with repair of body tissues. There's another specific question that I noticed on the test that is going to be about positive nitrogen balance, which I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But what that is, it's a accurate indicator that one is consuming enough protein.
Positive what?
Positive nitrogen balance. So if someone has a positive nitrogen balance, that means they're taking in stuff with nitrogen, basically, and that nitrogen is helping you, with your protein, basically. So if you have enough nitrogen in your body, you're going to be able to do tissue repair and, have growth and stuff like that.
Where do you get nitrogen in your body?
You already have some in your body. I don't know.
Okay, here, I just talked about that stuff. Oh, this does mention a little bit about vitamins and stuff. So as far as the vitamins go, fat-soluble vitamins would be your A, D, E, and K.
These are the fat soluble.
Yes,
Can you please repeat that?
sure. A, D, E, and K. And then we also have water-soluble vitamins, and those would be C and B complex. And vitamin B, there's like 8 different types of vitamin Bs. So that's why it says B complex. It includes every one of those vitamin Bs. So vitamins will help us with our metabolism. So if we don't have enough of those, sometimes we have an issue with our metabolism. And then minerals would be things like calcium and phosphorus and sodium and potassium and all those types of things. So those help us with our biochemical reactions in our body. So again, all of these things are important for us. They're crucial for the way that our body works. And then this talks a little bit about water, and it says it's a critical thing for cell function, and it replaces fluids that the body loses through other means, like, if you're perspiring, or if you, like respirations, you actually lose some water that way. Also through elimination.
Young business, keep writing.
Pretty serious.
Okay, so what do you think are some things that affect our nutrition and metabolism?
Your like physical activity, I feel like.
Okay.
Any diet that you like, if you have a poor diet.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe if you're like older and you don't have any teeth.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because what happens if you can't chew? You're not going to tend to eat much.
Right.
Also, like financial reasons. Like if you can't afford the food, then of course you're going to be like malnourished, or you're going to be basically eating
Definitely.
the entire time.
Definitely.
Genetics a part of that or no?
What, say that one more time?
Genetics?
Yeah, maybe. Well, this is what the ATI book mentions for this. So we talked about the financial issues. Appetite is going to be a thing. So if you're sick and you have a decreased appetite, that's going to affect your nutrition. Medications play a part with that. So certain medications cause you to not have a good appetite. Negative experiences. This is kind of funny. So if you've had a negative experience with a certain food before, then you tend to not want it again. Did you guys ever have something like that happen?
Yeah.
So like say you went out and got Chinese food or something, and then that evening you got sick and you threw up everywhere. So then the next time you saw that same Chinese food, maybe you would associate it with that, and maybe you wouldn't want to eat it again because you would think it was from that, you know? So something like that.
Like, not eating that again.
Other
That happened to me.
Other things that this mentions would be environmental factors. So, if you're around stuff that is really smelly or something, do you have an appetite and do you want to eat? Probably not, right? And then your age affects your nutritional requirements. So as we get older, we don't have as much of an appetite anymore. We don't eat as much. So that's going to affect things. What do you think someone looks like when they have poor nutrition?
Frail, thin. Not
Sometimes you see like sunken in eyes, or like your face looks sunken in.
Yeah, definitely.
like
Did you?
pale.
Oh, go ahead.
Pale,
Pale for sure.
brittle nails,
Yeah, and what's your hair look like?
Really
thin
thin.
and brittle.
Yeah. If you say you were someone who had anorexia for some reason, maybe you had an eating disorder. What's your teeth look like?
Would they be brown? Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Because of the acid enough, the acid from the stomach.
Yes. Yes. So it affects your teeth. The acid from your stomach does. You're right. So your teeth are not going to look very healthy at all.
Be brown.
Yeah, definitely. Other things that maybe you didn't think about would be, maybe mental status changes. They would have flaccid muscles. They might have loss of subcutaneous fat. They could have bleeding gums. Maybe weakness and fatigue, change in their weight, poor posture. Any of those types of things would be things you would see physically in someone who had poor nutrition. This part in this chapter gets into all the different things with absorption and stuff, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but you know that in your stomach you have acid. So when you take food in your mouth and you swallow it, it goes down eventually into your stomach, and you have this acid in there that mixes with it to break everything down into usable parts so that you can absorb things, So when you put stuff in your mouth, it's in like a certain form, and as it goes through, it like changes form, basically. So in your stomach, you have that acid does that. And then once you get out of your stomach and move to the small intestine, what happens in there?
Does it start to not build up? Not what's the opposite of that?
Breakdown.
Break down.
Okay. But so the big function of the small intestine is absorption. So that's where the majority of our absorption of nutrients and things happens, is in that small intestine. So a lot of times when people have certain disorders like celiac disease or trying to think of another one. Can you guys think of another one? What is it? Crohn's, maybe, when people have problems with absorption?
Yeah,
I think it is,
because the
yeah.
Crohn's isn't that when they have like the ulcers on their small intestine or large intestine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, they can't absorb the nutrients like they would, so they tend to be low in a lot of things, and you have to, replace all of that. And then after you get out of the small intestine, you go to the large intestine with all this stuff. So what happens in the large intestine?
It absorbs, it takes out the like rest of the water and kind of forms all the waste together.
Okay. So you're right. In the large intestine, we have water absorption. So it kind of starts to form the feces that we're going to end up getting rid of. So we really need to have this water absorption to happen to be able to facilitate all of this. So that's a big thing with the large intestine. So like on this slide at the bottom, it's saying, exercise and fiber stimulate peristalsis to move everything through, So that's kind of important things to know about those different places in your digestive system. Okay, I'm sure you guys are familiar with this picture, right? The choose my plate thing.
Yeah.
So if you had a question on this, why would you think, trying to think how this was worded. What's the purpose of choose my plate?
To help.
It's for you to have an intake proportionally, like having all the how do you even call that? Like having all your food nutrients in a proportional portion.
Okay.
Yeah,
What else?
I was just gonna say it's a way to have a balanced diet.
Okay. It kind of shows you what you should have more of compared to what you should have less of, right?
Yeah.
So it's very good about proportion size, because out in the world, people tend to not do very good with that. They have bigger proportions of things than they should. So by looking at this, it helps with that. So like you would just say, with portion sizes, and it helps people be able to see what types of food they should be eating more of. So like when you're looking at this, you see the vegetable portion is pretty large. So that's telling them that, hey, I need to be eating more vegetables. And then like the protein portion isn't as big, but it's somewhat okay. So like if I'm eating, a big steak or something, if it doesn't fit in that section, that means I'm eating too big of a steak. Maybe I need to eat a smaller portion of it. So it kind of gives you some direction on how to be a little healthier with how you eat.
That's all.
Okay, I do want to talk a little bit about different types of diets with you real quick, because this is on this test. In your ATI book on page 223, it lists a bunch of different types of diets. I want to see what you guys know about what is considered what. So if someone is on a clear liquid diet, what does that mean?
Water, like chicken broth, soups, juice.
But plain chicken broth, it can't have anything inside of it. like anything solid. It has to be legit straight
Broth.
Okay.
Soups. So juice.
So with clear liquids, then it has to be liquids that leave little residue.
Mhm.
So this would be fruit juices, jellos, broth, lemon ice, water, um, coffee and tea, I guess you could kind of say would go on there all right.
So what kind of fruit juices? Because like, you know how like orange juice has like pulp in it?
Yeah,
So-
so orange juice probably wouldn't be considered a clear liquid then. So like a cranberry juice would be okay, an apple juice would probably be okay. Stuff that you doesn't really leave a residue.
Okay.
How is Jello a part of the clear liquid if it's not really? Because it absorbs. Like
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah, so Jello, when you have you guys, I'm sure you've made Jello before in your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you make it, it's a clear liquid, right? So as it sets and everything, it sets up a little bit, but it still is considered a clear liquid. So when you take it in, it's going to break down that way, just like a clear liquid would.
Okay. Got it.
What about full liquids? What's the difference between that and clear?
So that can be like regular soups,
Okay.
like your orange juice, milk. Probably like all your regular liquid foods.
Okay, so full liquids would be anything that you could have on the clear liquid diet. You could still do that, plus anything that has like that's a part of the dairy family. So any liquid dairy products. So this means that you can now have milk, you can have pudding, you can have soups, things that would leave a little bit of a residue now. And sometimes I think they include cream of wheat in here too, believe it or not. So what would a pureed diet mean?
Like at my job, they have it already made out, but it's like soft and it looks like baby food a little bit.
Okay.
So maybe something
It's
like
like
applesauce?
Yeah, oatmeal.
Sure. So pureed, not everything can be pureed, right?
Right.
Quite a few things can be, but certain things just can't be. So when you're thinking about like upping someone's diet, you always start with clears, then you would move up to fulls, and then pureed would be like a step above that. So that means that everything clear and everything full, they would be allowed to have, plus they would be allowed to have things that are, put like in a blender or something to make it really, soft. So things like fruits, scrambled eggs, pureed meats, stuff that's like really small and tiny. So what's a mechanical soft diet?
Mechanical soft, like
So it's a combination of an in-between of a puree diet and a hard diet, a solid diet, but it's more on the solid side.
So like an example would be like ground beef.
Yeah,
Like-
so with mechanical soft, it's all of those things we already talked about. They could have those, but now with mechanical soft, they can also have things that are diced up. So like say you had fruit that was diced up kind of small, they would be able to do that. If you had meat that was like ground beef or something like that, they would be able to have that, or ground chicken or ground turkey. So it's just a little bit more than what they could have on the other one. Okay, and then if you ever have someone that's on what they call a soft or low residue diet, what this means is this is foods that are low in fiber and easy to digest. So what would be things that would be easy to digest?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, ice cream?
Oh my God.
No, that was just a guess.
Eggs,
I've never heard of that one.
eggs, or maybe milk.
Okay. So any kind of dairy products or eggs or ripe bananas, anything along those lines, those are easier to digest. Things that are hard to digest would be what?
Like your carbs, like your pastas and things like
Protein.
that.
Like your meat.
Yeah. Pasta
Yeah.
is hard to digest.
And like certain fruits are hard to digest even too, you know, like, I don't know, like an apple or something along those lines that would be a little bit harder for you to digest compared to that soft banana would be.
Grapes.
I love grapes.
So there's a couple other diets listed here, but I'm not going to go through every one of them. So that's kind of the main ones. On this test, they do ask you a couple of questions about diets, and they'll be like, oh, someone has such and such on their tray. What would cause you to question what their knowledge of their diet or something like that, you know? So that's the type of thing they'll ask you. Do you guys know how to keep intake and output?
Yes.
So when you do intake and output, anywhere you work, you always do it in milliliters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had students in the past who didn't know that and they thought they could just do it in ounces. So it's always in milliliters. So the things that you need to know with intake and output would be intake is going to include everything such as what they take in orally, so by mouth, food that would liquefy at room temperature, so like that would be your Jell-O, IV fluids, IV flushes, so even if you're just flushing someone's IV, that's considered intake. IV medications, so again, if I'm just doing an IV push of 2 milliliters, that's part of my intake. Enteral feedings, which would be tube feedings, so that would be part of it. Fluid installations, catheter irrigants, or tube irrigants. So anytime you irrigate something, so like if I'm just irrigating their catheter, if I use 60 cc's of water to do that, that's part of my intake. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So then part of output would be urine, blood, emesis, diarrhea, tube drainage. So like if someone has a wound vac, you know, you look in that wound vac to see how much they're putting out. And there's like a little canister on the side and it has measurements on there so you can tell how much they're putting out. So that would be part of their output. And also fistula drainage, that would be considered output. So there is a question on here that talks about that. So it'll give you, you know, some different values of different things and it'll say, hey, what is their intake and output for the shift? And you have to figure it out. You have to add it all up. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, what else did I have here? This chapter does mention a teeny bit about the BMI. Do you guys know what a good BMI is?
20.
Doesn't it depend technically on the person? Because doesn't it go by like height and weight?
Yeah.
The average.
But your average should be anywhere between,
Is
isn't it like 15 to 20 something, or am I like way off?
Here, I'll just tell you real quick.
Okay.
So a BMI of 25 is the upper boundary of a healthy weight. And then 25 to 29.9 is considered overweight. Wasn't that crazy? And then, I'm probably all with you right there. So 30 to 34.9 is obesity class 1. And 35 to 39.9 is obesity class 2. And then 40 and above is like obesity class 3. So like if you were thinking someone wanted a bariatric surgery or something, not everyone that wants bariatric surgery has a really huge BMI. There are quite a few that do, but not everyone does. Some people are, kind of down there a little further. So to figure out a BMI, which you don't have to do this for the test, but just FYI, if you had to figure this out, this is just your weight in kilograms plus your height. And the height is in meters squared.
Overweight.
So that's how
Do you
can-
divide it by anything?
No, it just says BMI equals weight in you're right. Weight in kilograms divided by height in meters squared is what it is. You're right. I didn't even look at that correctly.
Could you repeat the number for obesity class 3?
It is, let me find it.
30 something.
No, it's 40 and above is obesity class 3.
Oh, I mean class 2. I missed that.
Class 2 is 35 to 39.9.
Thanks.
Okay, so I have like 3 minutes before this is going to cut me off. So let me see if I can finish this stuff up real quick, and then we'll get into some skin stuff here in a minute when we get back on. Okay, you guys know what dysphagia is, right?
Yeah.
How do you know if someone's having dysphagia?
Difficulty swallowing.
Yeah, how do you know that they're having that problem?
They'll usually choke.
Or pocket food in their cheeks.
Okay, so what are you supposed to do for that?
Swallow
test.
Yeah. A swallow test. Put them on a different type of diet.
Yeah, so you always want to make sure they're sitting upright when they're eating. And obviously you would stop feeding them if they were, coughing and choking a ton. And if you notice that they're doing this with thin liquids, then if you have the ability to thicken stuff up, then that might be the better thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you suspect that someone is doing this, obviously they would need to get some type of test to confirm, but they could do like a chest x-ray or something to see if maybe that's what was going on. If they were in bed, like say you were feeding them in bed or something, you probably should turn them to their side and also put some oxygen on them just to make sure that they're not desatting. I'm just flipping through here real quick to see if there's anything else that's important. Oh, towards the end here, it does mention a little bit about like NG tubes and like tube feedings and stuff. So what would be some reasons why someone might need an NG tube?
Oh, because maybe they can't swallow.
Okay. So maybe they
Yeah,
had, yeah, maybe, this is going to cut me off, darn it. It says I have less than a minute, so I don't want to get into too much detail because then you're going to miss something I say. So I'm going to stop right now and I'm going to go and schedule another meeting. So get out of this real quick, go see my stuff to come back in, and then we'll finish what we're talking about. Okay?
Okay.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that.